Hello there everyone, it's Carol from the Crafty Emporium. Welcome back to the first video about making the planner. Now then, a couple of things just before we start. You need to remember that this planner that I'm making is only a single signature. If you want to do more than one signature, you will need to think about altering some measurements to be able to accommodate that, because there is no spine on this particular kind of journal. You may decide that you want to do separate journals for separate things. So you might want to keep spending in one, recipes and planning, weight sort of stuff in another one. So just bear that in mind, that it is only a single signature planner. In the last video, I talked about doing a little bit of prep work and thinking things through. So I have already gone through and I've printed off all of my labels and sections. I decided which sections I wanted to put in my planner. So I've cut all of those out, inked up the edges and stuck them onto some black cardstock, because I'm using black cardstock for my cover. And I just think that black makes colours pop that little bit more. So I've got all of those ready to use in my planner when I'm ready to use them. The other thing that I've done is I just drew some rough pages and just sort of worked out where I wanted which pages to be. So that's just my rough guide of what I did. Now on here, I've drawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I did 10 different sort of pages. Now bearing in mind that these will be on the back of the previous page, that means that I'm going to need 5 sheets of paper. I'm going to put a couple of extras in and I'm going to put some strips in, and I'm going to put some graph paper in, and I've worked out some measurements as well, which I will go through those with you shortly as well. Now I'm going to talk about the pages in a different video, because I want to do the cover today, but I just wanted to show you how I've sort of planned out what I want in my actual planner. The other thing to remember is I am in the UK and we use A4 paper size, so we don't use letter paper size. So you might need to adjust some of the measurements that I'm going to give you just slightly to accommodate your own sized papers that you're going to be using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 sheets of black cardstock. Now for those again in the UK, I got these from Hobbycraft and they're 210 GSM. They're not particularly firm pieces of card, they're quite flexible. But by the time I've added on my front and back decorative papers, it will just firm up that card a little bit. I've also printed off some of the decorative papers that I want to use to be able to cover the actual cover itself. So I've got those all cut out and ready. I'm not inking any of those up because this planner is just for me. It doesn't need to be highly decorated. Now, if you're making this as a gift for someone, don't forget you might want to decorate it up to your heart's content with lace and pockets and this and that and the other. That's entirely up to you. I'm doing this planner for me, so I'm going to make it fairly simple, fairly plain, because I just want something that's very practical for me to use. So I'm not being overly fussy about highly decorating it. But if I ever feel like doing a bit of extra doodles or putting a bit of a sticker in here and there as I'm going along, then I can do. But just the basics of it I'm going to keep fairly plain. The other thing that I'm going to need as well is a piece of Tyvek. I'll just get it out to show you. So apparently in America, possibly even Canada as well. So I don't want you feeling left out, Karen. Karen knows who I mean. You get envelopes made of Tyvek. We don't use those. They're not so readily available here in the UK, but it's a plastic coated paper. And it's basically quite difficult to tear. It is terrible, but not very, very easily. So I'm going to use this piece of Tyvek to strengthen up my spine. So I've got that ready as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold these 2 pieces of A4 card in half, and I'm just going to lightly finger press. Now I'm not going to burnish them at this stage to make it into a definite crease. I want it to be quite a soft crease on there, and I'm going to do the same with this second piece as well. So just fold them in half and just finger press it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these 2 pieces of card together. So I'm going to stick this back side onto this side here. Now I've got 2 glues that I'm going to be using. One is my Tombow multi-glue and the other is my Collal glue. So I'm going to use the Tombow glue, which is a slightly stronger glue, to stick these 2 layers together. So I'm going to put glue around all 4 sides, and I'm not putting it right up close to the edge because sometimes this glue can come out a little bit fast and then it oozes out, but I want it close enough that I can make sure that I've got a good adhesion between the 2 pieces, and then I'm going to run some through the middle. To bond them together really well. The other thing is, once this glue is kind of in contact, there's not much wiggle room, so you can't sort of jiggle it about. So I tend to try and put one edge down first before I put the whole thing down. So I'm going to put the edge of that card up against the edge of that fold, and then line it up top and bottom. And then apply a little bit of pressure. Now if you find that once you've done that, that a bit of card is actually sticking above the top, just trim it off a little. The same as when you close this side up, because this edge of the card is now in contact with that folded edge, if it overhangs slightly, you can just trim it off. And in fact, mine is doing that, so I'm just going to trim it down a little, because I don't want the overhang. So I'm taking my scissors at a very slight angle, so they're not vertical like that, they're at an angle, to just be able to trim off that little bit of excess, and so that I'm not cutting into the folded edge. Press it down, flipped it over onto the back, and just applying a bit of pressure on the back there to make sure that it's all in contact with each other. And of course, now this centrepiece has got a double thickness of card on it. It makes it that little bit more sturdier again. Now I'm going to get my scoreboard out, because what I want to do is I want to create a little bit of a spine on this side. Not on that side, but on this side. And I'll show you why. Because I want to allow for the papers at this end. They'll all bunch together where they collect together at this end, but they splay out a little bit at this end. So I'm going to put a little bit of a spine on this edge here. So not on this left hand crease, on the right hand crease. And I'm just going to butt it up to this top edge, and I've got this part here where this part of the card joins the other. I've got that lined up with an inch mark, and I'm just going to reinforce that score mark by going over it again. I'm then going to do another one at 3/8 of an inch beyond that point. So this spine is 3/8 of an inch wide. And if I hold it up, you might be able to see it, but with it being on black card, oh, you can see it just a bit there, look. So that's the edge of the first piece of card there, and then I've gone 3/8 of an inch beyond that point. So then I'm going to fold that over. And I'm going to burnish that down, open it back out. That should fold in, and then that will fold then over the top so that it looks like that. So this side is pinched together and this side has the spine on it. So hopefully you can see that okay. Now the next part is this bit here. This is too long for me, for my purposes, and so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim this down. And if I show you on the original one that I did, so I had it going across about 3/4 of the way, because the intention was that this piece of card here would have a magnet in it between the two layers, and then a magnet on this part under here, so that when it closed, that magnet would hold it together. Best laid plans of mice and men. I didn't think it through properly, in that it would then bulk out, and so I've now got a gap between that card and the cover itself, so the magnets won't work. Which is why I've done the elastic, and I'm going to do the elastic on this one as well. But this one I did about 3/4 of the way across. I don't need it quite as far as that, so I'm actually going to do it about halfway across. Now I'm not going to measure it, I'm just going to do a rough, round about, oh, I don't know, maybe 3 1/4 inches. Yeah, we'll do it 3 1/4, because I know that some people like measurements. So that flap is now 3 1/4 inches wide, so you can see it goes about halfway. Now with the original one, sorry, I'm just looking for something, I layered the image up to sit like so, and then I layered it up onto some of the patterned paper, and then I put another piece on, but on the back. In between those two layers, I actually put the magnet. And then I attached this once I put my background paper on here, to find out then where I needed to put the magnet on this side, before I then attach the background paper onto this piece. If you want to use a magnet, it's sort of round about this point, once you put this piece of paper on here and then attach this, it's at this point then that you need to think about your magnets. But I'm not doing that today. Not going down the magnet route again. So I've got my piece of Tyvek, and I've cut this to about 2.5 inches wide, and it needs to now overlap that spine area that goes down there. Now I don't want it as long, so I'm just going to trim it down a touch. And I'm going to use the Tombow glue again to just stick this in place. And it needs a fairly strong glue, so the collal glue wouldn't be good enough to be able to stick this down, because it's got that plastic coating on it. And then I'm just going to stick that down over that crease, so that I've got sort of half on this side and half on that side. Now a lot of people at this point would be tempted to try and fold that over, but I'm not. I'm going to leave it so that that glue now sets before I actually fold it over. this is the piece that I've cut of my decorative paper that's going to sit on this inside cover here. It's not going to go right the way across the whole face of it. It's just going to go to the edge of where the card finishes here. So that's going to sit on there, and I'm going to leave a small border all the way around. Okay, so I've got sort of roughly 1/8 of an inch at the top, side, bottom, and on this side as well. So you need to measure that area, height and width, and then take 1/8 of an inch off each of the 4 sides and cut your decorative paper to that size. Now I'm going to use my Tombow glue again, because I want it to be a nice strong glue to stick over this part of the Tyvek. So glue around the 4 sides. And then through the middle. Now the other thing that I'm going to do, be very careful with this because I don't want glue everywhere, is I'm actually going to put some over the Tyvek as well, because I want to make sure that that contacts really well over that area. Okay, happy with that. Now, if when you apply things like this and you find that some of your Tyvek glue comes out from the edge of the paper, you'll find that if you try and rub it off, it doesn't come off very easily. And if I can find it, where's it gone? There it is. So I've got this particular rubber called the Mono Sand and Rubber Eraser. Again, it's by Tombow. So if any glue happens to ooze out of the side when you're using this specific glue, then you can use this rubber to try and erase it, because it really is a rubbery glue. And if you get it on your fingers, it makes your fingers very sticky, and it remains sticky. Even once it's dried, it remains sticky. Now again, I'm adding some extra pressure down that central area where I've put that Tyvek on. So I want to make sure that it's got a really good adhesion there. And in fact, I have to use this one. I'm just going to apply some pressure with my bone folder. And then I know then, fingers crossed, that it's really stuck down well. Again, I'm not going to fold it for a bit. I'm going to stick the other pieces on first. So I've cut my 2 front pieces, and mine measure 5 5/8 wide by 8 inches high. And that again allows for sitting on that front panel and having a border round each of the 4 sides, and it allows it to sit on that back panel, and again the border on each of the 4 sides. As I say, I'm not going to ink my edges up, just purely for time. And then some through the middle. And then I'm just putting the top edge down first so that I can make sure it's in the right place, and then putting the rest of it down. before I apply any pressure. See, I've got it on my finger, look, and it's all sticky. Ugh. Okay, get this other piece on. Don't forget as well that if you're watching these videos and not crafting along with the video itself, then you can write yourself some notes. You can pause it, you can replay it, and I've made a playlist of all of these. So up in the top up there, there's a playlist, and all of these videos will be grouped together so that you can find them easy enough. If you don't actually want to make this today and you want to make it another time, I've added it to the playlist. Okay, so that's the front and the back done. And then for these flappy bits here, I've cut some pieces out, and I've cut those to 3 inches wide, so they'll stick on there. So I'll stick them on the front and the back. And then by the time I've done all of that, my glue should have taken off enough for me to be able to fold and bend that spine. And if you find making this planner useful, don't forget to share the idea with your friends by sharing the link of the video. And just beneath the video you'll see a share button. If you click on that, it'll copy the actual link to the video. And then you can share it on your Facebook page or Facebook group, or even save it in your own playlist. Some down the middle. Now I'm not going to decorate up the spine area, so you can see there's quite a wide area there, but that's where that opening spine is going to be here. I'm not decorating those up. Again, if you wish to do so, then you can. There is no reason why you shouldn't. Okay, let's make sure I'm happy with the contact of everything. Yes, that's fine. I think that one might be slightly skewy because that looks wider there than there. Oh well. Never mind. It's only for me. Right, I'm going to pop this back in my score pal. And I'm going to go over that crease again and go over that score line again on this side, on the outside edge, because what that will then do is when I flip it over, I've got the score line there so I can see where I'm scoring. Because it's so thick, it doesn't always follow the ridges of the scoreboard, so at least if I've got a kind of line there already, now I'm along the right track. Okay, fingers crossed that this bends. Now if I haven't put enough glue on the Tyvek part here, this paper will bubble up now when I fold it over. Oh heck, let's hope. It's just lifting slightly. I don't think that glue's taken off just quite yet, so I'm going to leave it a little bit longer before I bend it, but that will fold over. That will fold over there, and then this will fold over on the top. I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to let you get to that point, and I'll come back in the next video and show you how I've done the closure and how I've decorated up the front. And then in the video after that, I'll show you how I've put the pages together and then how I'm going to decorate them. Thanks very much for popping by again, and I'll see you all again in the next one. Bye for now.